Hello, Tar Heel Nation. We are back with another off-season UNC Hoops Talk podcast. I'm your host, Dan DeWitt. I'm joined tonight by Gil and Blake. Glad to have you guys. Before we jump into, we got a big slate here. We're talking players, predictions, what we predict, or as close as we can to go out on a limb here and say what we think is going to happen tonight. Before we jump into that, we have our first ad read of the podcast. This is making history here tonight, but we got hooked up with some home field apparel, or at least I did. You can see one of my shirts here. They just came out with the vintage UNC lineup this past weekend, and really soft, comfortable t-shirts. Definitely something that I will wear and will wear for quite some time, and glad to have them kind of sponsor this podcast. If you've not checked them out before, not bought anything from them, if you're watching this, you can kind of see it scrolling on the bottom. Otherwise, it'll be in the description of this video or podcast, wherever you're listening. But go to homeapparel.com. Check out of course, they have a bunch of schools, but we only care about the UNC lineup. And when you check out, if you buy anything in the first order, use UNC Hoops Talk, and you will save 15% on that order. So glad to have them here sponsoring this podcast. But we're going to jump right in. So I sent you guys this a little bit. I didn't get a lot of time to think about this, not as much as I wanted to, but we're trying to predict what we can the season here for the guys. So I don't know. You guys can stop me if you'd rather start with somewhere else, but we're going to jump right into, if you guys don't care, the MVP of the season. And I don't know who wants to take this first, but if they want to throw out a bold prediction of the MVP for this upcoming season for the Tar Heels.
Take it, Gil. Let's hear that freezing cold take.
All right. I have a hard time going with anyone other than Dawson Garcia. I just have big expectations for Dawson coming into this season. I know he's, first year with the Tar Heels, first year in Carolina's system, but it's all going to be first for a lot of people because Hubert's coach. So he averaged 13 points for the Golden Eagles of Marquette last year and nearly 6.6 rebounds, I believe. And, playing in a pretty competitive conference. So I think coming into the ACC, we're going to see a great defensive effort from him, all-around play. I'm going with Dawson for my MVP of the season. And I will say, though, that I was thinking a little bit about Armando, and I'm excited to talk about X Factors and others. But MVP, I'm going Dawson Garcia.
All right, Blake, you want to close this out, or you want to go next?
Go ahead, take it away.
All right. Hopefully I steal yours then. So I was kind of between Caleb Love and Armando, where Gil was going there. Caleb, because the ball's going to be in his hands so much, he gets to influence everything. But I think I'm going to go with Armando. I think between the defensive end, the rebounding that he can put up, being the biggest guy, being the most experienced there, kind of knowing what we got, and then hopefully we still at least kind of run our offense inside out. I know we've talked a lot about all the outside shooters, the big guy, the stretch fours, all that stuff, but hopefully still run inside out. And with the spacing of those shooters, hopefully Armando's got a lot more room inside. So I'm going with Armando for my MVP this year.
So Dawson Garcia is who I really like, and I was going to take Armando Bacot after Dawson was taken there. But, I'd like to kind of go away from both of those, but I don't think we're going to be able to. I think it's going to be one of those two players. And there's a lot to like about both players. Dawson Garcia, like Gil mentioned, is a guy that can put up, big points. He's a good rebounder. I think he's going to be an even better passer in year two. And maybe more importantly than anything, he can shoot from distance. That's something that North Carolina really hasn't had for a long time. They haven't had big guys that can shoot, from even 15 feet out, let alone from 20 feet out, and guys that can do it consistently. And he's a guy that shot over 35% as a freshman at Marquette. So I think, in order for Armando Bacot to be as successful as I think he's going to be this season, it's going to take a lot of Dawson Garcia. So I think they're kind of a 1-2 punch. I don't think one of them is as successful without the other. Same thing, the other way around. Dawson Garcia having a great season is going to enable Bacot to have a terrific season because it's going to clear out the lane. It's going to give him space. That's something he didn't have last year. So we may have had all these, terrific bigs. You've got Day'Ron Sharpe, who becomes a late first-round NBA draft pick. And you've got Garrison Brooks, who had a down season, but he's a guy who entered the season as a preseason, all ACC, type of guy. And And then you've got Armando Bacot, and you had Walker Kessler, who really broke out. So you had all these really good individual parts, but none of them really fit together that well. And part of the problem is that these were guys that clogged the lane, and it really stifled the offense at times. And part of that is because of the lack of outside shooting. And one of the first things that we've seen Hubert Davis do is make sure to get shooters. So we got Brady Manic from Oklahoma coming in, who's a guy who's, as a career shooter, he's over 35%. And that's as a 4-year starter at Oklahoma. Dawson Garcia, again, like I said, over 35%. Those guys are going to help space out that floor and give Bacot room to work, and he should have a monster season. I think both of them will be extremely, extremely good. I don't think one more important than the other, but I do look for Garcia to have a massive season.
All right, you're going to Dustin Garcia, final answer?
I'm going for it, yeah.
All right, you want to start the next round off, or you want me to go?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go to best defender on the team. Now, when I thought about this, you can kind of go, obviously, it's different defending the bigs inside, looking at blocks as opposed to, the wing defender maybe doesn't have the stats, but we kind of see them shut down maybe the best player and stuff. So I think there's a lot of ways we can go here. Let's hear what you got.
So I want to start with, let's hope that there is a best defender. Last year was
there is
painful.
always a best. It's just if it's any good, right?
Let's hope that it's discernible.
Better than the others.
So I really do. The biggest problem with this team and with the players that maybe I kind of see being in the starting lineup is the lack of defense. You look at a guy like Armando Bacot. He's not the best defender. He can defend a little bit, but he's not a terrific defender. He's not a great rim protector. Solid rebounder, of course. Look at a guy like Kerwin Walton, the best shooter the Tar Heels had last season. He may be the best shooter they have this season. We'll see how that plays out. It didn't defend worth a lick. Yes, he was a freshman. Yes, he was getting acclimated to the college game. That's a big deal. It's not easy. Leaky Black, in my estimation, at one point, we assumed that he was the best defender on this team. Last year, to me, didn't say he was the best defender. He wasn't really that good. So you would want to see a guy like him who isn't proficient on the offensive end really make up for it in a Jackie Manuel, Marcus Ginyard type of a way on the defensive side of the ball. He really didn't do that last year. He was lost a lot of times on defense. He didn't make a lot of plays. He didn't really use his size and length very well. And then, of course, like I said, it didn't turn into good offense either. The guy that I really hope and expect to step up this year is Caleb Love. I think Caleb Love is going to be a really good on-ball defender. I think that he's a guy that's going to have to stifle the other team's best offensive perimeter threat at times. Having said that, I, again, go back to Dawson Garcia because I think Dawson Garcia is going to be a difference maker inside. I think he's going to be a guy that can protect the rim. He's got terrific height. He's got great length. He's athletic, especially for his size. But I think if we can just get both of those guys working at a fairly high level, one on the outside, one on the inside, and let the other guys kind of fill in the gaps and just not be horrible, then I think you could see a pretty decent, defensive performance from the Tar Heels this season.
All right, Gil, you want to go next?
Okay. I see things a little differently. I agree with some of those points, and I agree that expectation-wise, Carolina is not known for being the best defensive teams historically. They've had some good years, but not any in recent memory. And I agree that there were times last year that both Bacot and Leaky Black could have performed much better on the defensive end. And I think there were moments when there was some good signs there. Ant Harris, I think, is tenacious, so I'm going to give a shout out to him. And I think Armando may show some good signs. I think he's getting lighter on his feet. I saw big progress in that from year two to, from year one to year two. And I agree that I think Dawson, Hubert has been singing his praises in terms of his defensive proficiency. Plus, you got Justin McCoy coming from UVA, where he's been, ingrained those defensive traits. So I think he's going to show something. I think Kerwin has really been working hard in the offseason, not only on continuing to improve his shot, but also on his defensive effort to stay on the court more. So I think we'll see some progress there. And I actually expect a better defensive effort overall from this team. But I'm not sure if this is ultimately who Blake went with. If it was, then I'll pick someone else. But I was thinking Caleb Love is going to be our best defender. I think he's going to be shutting down the other team's point guards. I think we started to see a fair amount of it last year. I think we're going to see even more of it this year. Some steals for some, great dunks coming in. So I'm looking forward to that. I think he's going to be the best defender on this 2021-2022 Carolina roster.
All right. Yeah, and I don't know if it matters. We didn't really set up rules if we can't steal other people's picks. Blake, did he steal yours? I didn't even hear your final answer.
I mean, that's who I lean toward, being the guy that's really going to step up. He's got the quickness and the athleticism to be a really good lateral defender and to be a guy that can get into passing lanes and to affect other teams' guards. And I think that if it starts with him, I think good things are going to happen. And I won't even force you to change your pick.
He's got size and strength too at that point guard position, which I think is going to also be an asset.
Well, I had you both down for Dawson Garcia for the MVP, so I think we can double up. That's okay. You guys, maybe you shouldn't coordinate this before we get on the podcast.
We've been talking all day.
Yeah. All right. So I didn't even really think about Caleb Love. I agree that if he is our best defender, that's good for us because that, again, sets the tone defensively. I think back to like Raymond Felton just getting up into guys. I mean, those are good teams when your point guard starts that. Nate Britt kind of had that for a little bit there, really getting into guys. But this is actually the one I put that I thought was kind of the easiest. And maybe that means I'm way wrong. Maybe I nailed it. I don't know. But to me, I think it's Dawson Garcia that with his athleticism, his length, all that, he can be, some trouble and, coming off the help side, getting some block shots, whatever it is. I didn't think about Justin McCoy, Gil, like you said, having that Virginia defense kind of built into him or ingrained in him from last year. That worries me a little bit about my pick, but I think Garcia gets a little bit more minutes, gets a little bit more production, and will be this team's best defender. Again, it is different judging a wing or a point guard defender as opposed to a big guy defender. Maybe gets those stats a little bit more with the blocks, but I'd be okay with either of us or any of us being right on that one. I'll take Caleb Love if he is, but I kind of see Garcia being some trouble, hopefully, for us down low there. So,
and if they both are, I can't overstate how important it is if you've got a guy that's making it difficult to get interior passes into the lane, and you've got a guy that's making it hard to get those passes in there. Right. And if you've got a Caleb Love that's making it difficult for the smaller guys, and you've got a guy inside that's making it difficult to get the ball in there, and then in turn making it difficult to make easy layups and get 2-footers and 3-footers, that's huge. And one more guy that, similar to Justin McCoy, another guy that we haven't talked about that I think is going to obviously not get as many minutes this year, but is going to be a really good defensive player moving forward, is Dontrez Styles. This is a guy that can play defense. He's got really good size. He's got good athleticism. I think he is like a Leaky Black, but with really good offense. I think he's going to be able to hit shots. He's just an athletic guy. He's a cerebral player. And I think, by year 2 and certainly year 3, this is a guy that can really show out in Chapel Hill.
Well, I think there's a lot of guys we didn't mention. As somebody said, Leaky, he's got the length. I think Puff Johnson, if he gets some minutes, he's got some length on him. I know Gil said Anthony Harris. I mean, we've got plenty of guys that have the capability to defend. We just got to want to, and we got to execute on that end as much as we worry about executing on the offensive end. So, all right.
I think Dawson Garcia is a good pick, and that could contribute to his getting the MVP of the season as well.
There you go. I might have drawn myself into a corner there. We'll see. All right, so you guys went first. I'll take this one first. Team's X factor, and I think it's for a lot of the reasons you guys just picked him kind of as defender of the year, and we talked about him as the MVP as well. But Caleb Love, I think kind of his improvement and the way he runs this team is kind of the X factor of how far we go in the tournament, how what our record looks like, what we look at as a team, and all that stuff. So my X factor was, again, this one probably right up there with the Dawson Garcia as the defender. This is kind of almost easy for me to pick as my X factor, because how Caleb plays and runs this team, I think is how this team runs. So I don't know who wants to go up next, but that's my.
Well, I'll kind of go away from that and say that I don't think Caleb Love is the X factor. I think he is the factor. X factor to me is kind of this ancillary thing where it's like, hey, if this happens, then everything will kind of like gel. Whatever Caleb Love does, I think that's kind of how this team is going to go. And that's why I like him so much, to step up and be a terrific defender and to sort of lead by example and to sort of get that start on the defensive end, but also be able to score. I think he's going to shoot it at a higher rate this year. I think he's going to be a more efficient passer. If these things happen, this team is going to be a solid team. If they don't, it's a team that's going to struggle. Roy Williams, Hubert Davis, whatever. This team is still predicated upon about good point guard play. And if it doesn't happen, it's not going to be, there's no factor. This team won't be good. We've seen what this team is like with poor point guard play and a bunch of bigs inside. We could have the most talented guys inside all you want. If nobody can get them the ball, it's not going to matter. I would love to say that this is the X factor, that if all these other things go well and Dawson Garcia comes in and has a great season, Brady Manic gives you 20 minutes and he shoots 40% from three, and Caleb Love plays terrific, and you've got good bench guys. The X factor that you love to have on this team would be Leaky Black. Leaky Black is the guy that if he could put it together for one season, give you 8 points a game and play outstanding defense, that's the X factor that you want for this team. You want everything else kind of working like a well-oiled machine and doing what they should do based on what we've seen out of high school, out of the one season at Marquette, out of 2 seasons at North Carolina so far, that's now got Big Hot projected as an all-ACC player. If Leaky Black could put it together, I'm not even asking him to shoot shots tremendously well. Hit your layups, be able to slash a little bit, get inside, be able to pass it to the guys on the wing, just stay within his role, then this team would be terrific.
Fair enough. Different way of looking at it, but I like it. I'll take it. All right, Gil.
All right, so this is fascinating because initially when I was thinking about the X Factor, Caleb Love popped into my mind. You went that way. Last year, I think I went with Leaky as an X Factor, and he was also maybe number 2 on my list. Blake, he went that way, but now I'm going to go another direction. I'm going, because I agree with what you said, Blake. I like what you said about Caleb being the factor. I think the ball being in his hands is going to be so important for him to show up this season and the expectations of what we really had for him last season. So I think he is the factor. But my X factor is going to be Kerwin Walton. 42% from three-point land last year. And I wish I had the stats to back up. When he made like 3 or more threes per game, it seemed like Carolina always won. I don't know that for a fact, but that was the way it seemed last year. It was really, really important for him to spread the court. Now, there is a different dynamic this year. I agree that the spacing is going to be better with Brady Manic, who could be another potential X factor. I think Puff Johnson could be a little bit of an X factor too, kind of a sub X factor. So I'm excited to see what he brings. But I'm going with Kerwin because I think he's going to help space out the floor, get better opportunity for entry passes into Big Hot and Garcia. So they can work down low. They can work a little high-low perhaps. And I think he's just going to bring even more tenacity and probably even more ability to score in 2-point field goal percentage. So I like what Kerwin's going to do for this team this year as the X factor, and it's going to, when he plays well, I think we're going to see wins in the win column for us.
8-4 when he hits 3 or more.
Okay, all right, that's pretty solid. Thank you for that.
All right. We got one last question, and then we'll see kind of where we are time wise. We'll see how long we go on this one. But who is going to be this year's leading scorer? Who wants to go first now? We've gone around now. Who wants to take this one?
All right, I'm going with Baycott. This is where I say Baycott for last year's leading scorer, and every year has increased his points per game. I think he's been working on his shot. We may see a little bit more of the ability to, and more diversity in his game, not only just posting up. But last year, when we needed a bucket, he was the go-to guy. And there was some moments in games where he could even take over. I remember, 1 or 2 games late in the season where he just, it was like, we got to get him the ball. That's our only way that we were really consistently getting shots, high caliber shots and scoring with any amount of consistency. So I think he's going to maybe get up above 20 points per game, just barely, and he'll be our leading scorer for this year.
Yeah, no, it's going to be Garcia or Baycott. I'm going to say Baycott because he's going to have a lot of high percentage shots and he should have a lot of room to work. So let's assume that the Tar Heels shoot as well from outside as we think they are. If Walton, hits upwards, of 40% from 3, if Garcia's hitting shots, if Brady Manic is hitting shots, certainly if Caleb Love can shoot the ball with more efficiency, if RJ Davis is hitting shots and all this slew of guys that in theory on paper should be able to hit shots, Baycott should absolutely eat in the paint. And just by virtue of him having so many shots within 5 feet, I think he should be the leading scorer. But I think obviously that is, of course, again, predicated upon guys being able to hit shots. If something happens and we've got all these, practice players this year that hit 163s in practice and then they can't hit 1 of 16 in the game, there's going to be problems because then everybody's just going to collapse and they're going to assume that the Tar Heels can't hit shots. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think we're going to have a team stacked full of Andrew Playtechs. I really do think guys are going to convert from deep, and I think that's going to give Baycott a lot of room to work.
So you guys are really helping my MVP vote here look good. And for part of me, I agree. I kind of think it's going to be Baycott as well. I don't know that I want to go agree with you guys as my official vote. I think that's where I was headed before you guys both kind of took him off the board there. And I was about to say Garcia, but then Blake said it has to be one of those two, and that makes me just kind of want to go against the grain as well. But
he's like, it's DeMarco Dunn.
Well, I was gonna say maybe RJ Davis is just gonna light it up off the bench there, or maybe if he's starting at the 2. But I don't know. I'm kind of torn between Baycott, Garcia, and then Caleb Love because he's got the open field and the ball in his hands as well. But I guess I'm going to have to just go along with the train here. I think I'm going to have to go with my MVP vote and Baycott as well. Again, if I say Dawson Garcia, then if I say he's the defender of the team, the best defender on the team and the leading scorer, then he's probably the MVP of the year as well. So I'm going to have to help my MVP out as well. And I'm going to say Baycott as well. Offensive rebounds, putbacks. And then again, like I said, if we're running the offense inside out and he's got all that room to operate, I think, he's got plenty of points there to get up on the board. And I kind of hope I'm wrong. I hope we have somebody shooting so well from the outside. Kerwin's knocking on, like you said, 3 or 4 3 a game and adding those points, or Garcia is just an animal inside and out and he leads the points. But I kind of feel like it's going to be Baycott. So I got to go with that and help my MVP vote. So, all right, you guys still got some time here. We're good to keep going?
Yeah.
All right. So my last kind of question I threw out to you guys, I don't know how much time you guys had to think about it, but and I predicate, maybe you guys want to go, you can speak up and go against me here, but I kind of see this as, since it's a predictions podcast, what we think is going to happen, not necessarily what we think is the best lineup, what we want to see, but what we think is going to happen here with Hubert Davis as the coach. But a starting lineup and then like the first 3 guys off the bench. If we can, kind of the rotation players, what we think it's going to be, if we can predict, again, what we think is going to happen, not what we want to happen or want to see. I don't know if there's somebody that wants to jump into this one, or if we want to kind of go position by position. How do you guys want to do it? You want me to go first, Gil? Is that what that point was? Or you
I took the last one first, so I wanted to hear someone else.
Blake, you still working over there?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I know what mine is, but I'm all ears.
Well, you go ahead then, and
okay,
all right. I
I
know what my starters are going to be. I got to think about my rotation here.
Okay, so I wrote an article in the beginning of May, and this was not too long after Hubert had taken the job. This is about a month after he had taken the job. I am still not sure. And it has been a long time since it's been in, mid-September, and I haven't been 99.5% sure what the starting lineup's going to be. I know what I want it to be, but if I said with any, amount of certainty whatsoever that I was sure what it's going to be, I'd be lying. But what I took as the starting lineup that I think, and maybe they blend what it should be versus what I think it will be. I think there's 3 guys that are automatically slated in the starting lineup. Caleb Love is obviously one of them. Armando Baycott is obviously one of them as well. And I think Dawson Garcia is one as well. I think all 3 of those guys will be in the starting lineup no matter what. And that I feel confident in. Now, it's the other spots that I'm not 100% sure about. I went ahead and went with Kerwin Walton at the 2 to remain in there where he was last year. I like him to continue shooting the ball well. And if the rest of the Tar Heels are shooting the ball well, then he should shoot the ball well too. He's going to get a lot of open looks. He's not going to get a bunch of double teams. And then the other guy that I went with the caveat of defense is what I'm worried about, is Brady Manic. And so let me explain that. I'm tired of not seeing the Tar Heels score points over the last couple of years. They've really struggled. So, I would like to see them go back to an offensive lineup, but one that also has a lot of height, because I think that the height of a Dawson Garcia and an Armando Bacot, even if he is not the best defender, but if Dawson Garcia is in there as well, being a rim protector and with that length, and if Caleb Love can step up as a defender, then I think you may have enough defense on the floor at that point. Enough to enable a guy like Brady Manic, who may not be the best defender, to come in there and give you 5 or 6 rebounds and really good long distance shooting. So if I've got Love, Walton, Manic, Garcia, and Bacot, I have a ton of size. I have a ton of shooting. My only concern, like I said, is the defense of Brady Manic. When it comes to defending athletic wings, how does he do? Does it require a whole lot of help side defense from a guy like Dawson Garcia, guys like Armando Bacot? Or is he able to hold his own? He is pretty tall to be playing the 3. And we saw obviously last year what it was like to play a bunch of bigs. But I don't feel like this is what that is. This is a different style of basketball. This isn't clogging the lane with a whole bunch of big guys. This is talking about literally in that lineup, that's 4 guys that can shoot the 3 and that have to be guarded when they try to take a 3. Caleb Love, Kerwin Walton, Brady Manic, and Dawson Garcia can all hit 3s. And then the lane has 1 defender for a guy that should be able to take anybody in the ACC. That's what I like. The reason that I don't want to put Leaky Black in that starting lineup is because we've seen it. I've watched that movie enough times to know that. And again, like I said, the perfect X factor would be Leaky Black putting it all together and having a great season. Since I don't have any evidence to support that even coming close to happening, I don't love giving 25 minutes a game to a guy that can't score. And that didn't honestly play particularly great defense last year either. Those are really empty minutes. And some people may be unhappy with that, but that's kind of just the way it was. I also don't love starting RJ Davis and Caleb Love side by side. It wasn't very good last year. It was discombobulated. They didn't work well together. I think they're better separate. I also have the question, and then I'll shut up, of if you've got Davis and Caleb Love starting, which is what a lot of people have projected as a Tar Heel starting lineup, who's your next point guard to come in when those 2 have to rest? Who are you honestly going to put in? I mean, you could put in Anthony Harris, sure. You could put in a freshman DeMarco Dunn, but we've seen not 1 minute of him on a college court yet. Who's really your starting point guard off the bench? You take those 2 guys out. Who's the guy that you go to and say, okay, these guys have got to rest for 7 minutes? Or, hey, Caleb Love and RJ Davis, one of them's gassed and the other one's got 3 fouls. You've got to come in for maybe the last 8 minutes of the half. Who's that guy? I don't know. So that's why I don't like those guys in the game together. I like RJ Davis as that backup point guard, although I do want to see what DeMarco Dunn can do in that role.
All right, really quickly, we got your starting lineup. What about you threw out some other names, but you're kind of 3 off the bench, or if you want to limit it to 2, go up to 4. What's your kind of?
Well, so obviously it has to do with which one of those guys starts. Leaky's going to get minutes one way or another. Leaky's going to get the minutes. He's put in the time. He's been there 3 years. This is year number 4. He is still viewed as a guy that can play some defense. So he's going to get his minutes. He's going to be one of those guys. RJ Davis, if he doesn't start, is going to be one of those guys. And certainly if Brady Manic doesn't start after starting 4 years at Oklahoma, he's absolutely going to be one of those guys. It's going to be some combination of that. So whichever ones don't start out of that group are going to be very, very shortly down the bench. But like I said, before we went on, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. And I actually don't think that Hubert Davis is positive about what the lineup's going to be. I think it's going to take having some practices and some of the preseason stuff to see, where the team is at and who he feels most comfortable with in that position.
Right. Well, we know Roy always played, 10, 11 guys early and then cut that back. I think it's going to be even more of that. And, we're deep enough to where he's going to have to figure stuff out after games have started, when we're after non-conference or whatever.
Yeah, well, you've got guys like Justin McCoy, Dontrez Styles, DeMarco Dunn that would be potentially starting for a number of D1 programs, certainly getting a lot of minutes, and they may struggle to get double-digit minutes in year 1 with the Tar Heels.
Yep, for sure. Gil, you want to go next? Or you want to end us off?
I'll go ahead.
All right.
So I agree with the people that you can put in an ink. Caleb Love is the starting point guard. No doubt about it. Armando Bacot, starting 5, no doubt about it. The entry of Dawson Garcia into this team's roster really does change things quite a bit because, before he came around, you were all good with Brady Manic, in my mind, at least I was, as the starting 4. I don't see how you can not start Dawson Garcia. He is 6'11", and so you're going to have 2, really tall interior players, which is why I can't see Brady Manic being a third starter. 6'10", 6'11", 6'9". That'd be great in terms of height, but I just don't think Manic possesses the foot speed and the agility to stick with, really fast slashing wing players. I think that's going to be, I think that's going to be something that is suspect. So therefore, Hubert Davis, he's a Dean Smith guy. And what did Dean Smith love to value? He loved to value loyalty. He loved to value playing guys that had been in the system for a while. So I think Leaky Black is going to see the court on as a starter. Now he might be the first guy subbed out every game, and that's when you're getting a fresh lineup in, McCoy and Manic coming in, that kind of thing. But I think he's going to be a starter, which I know not all Carolina fans will love to see, but hopefully he is the X factor like we talked about earlier, and he does really stuff the stat sheet. And so then that leaves the 2, which I agree, Kerwin Walton. I mean, he claimed that spot last year. I don't think he's done anything at this point to surrender it. Like I said earlier, it was so important when he made shots consistently for this team. And I think we're going to see a lot better shooting overall. We've got better floor spacers. We've got better shooters. So I think that should be an improvement, but I think he's the most integral one. And like I said, I think his defense is also we're going to see improvement in it. So I think he's going to retain that starting spot. So that's my starting 5. RJ Davis is, it's going to be tough to limit this to just like 3 off the bench, because I think you got RJ Davis, he's the backup point guard, and he's going to be a pivotal player. I think you got Ant Harris, and I think it's going to depend on what Hubert values. I mean, we know he values shooting, but I think he's going to also value defense and energy, which is what Ant Harris brings. So I think that he's going to be an important factor coming off the bench, and entering into his 3rd season. He's finally healthy, and he's going to be an important cog. The freshmen, I think, are going to get minutes. I'm going to be excited to see Dontrez Styles playing. DeMarco Dunn getting playing time, and I'm really excited about Puff Johnson. And so, I mean, it's like I can't stop, because I know Justin McCoy is going to get minutes, and I know Brady Manic's going to get minutes, but I also think those freshmen are going to get their minutes, and I think we're going to see for sure RJ getting plenty of playing time, and Puff Johnson, I'm really hopeful for some great things from him this year. I think he's a underrated rebounder, in addition to he has a quality shot. So I can't limit it to just that like short rotation. I think it's, we've got 9 really good players, like Blake said. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys in there that could easily start for another D1 program, even an ACC D1 program.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. When if you limit it to even 8 or 9, you're still leaving out 3 guys. Is like, why aren't they getting minutes? And hopefully, like they're getting minutes, and they either earned more as the season goes on, or someone else kind of jumped over them. And just so you guys know, I did write down the first 4 kind of awards that we gave out. I'm not writing down the starters here, but we're going to revisit this towards the end of the season, see how we did here. But so yeah, I'm with you. Caleb Love is definitely in there at point guard. Baycot's in there at the center. I think Kerwin is inked in at the shooting guard. I think Hubert being a shooter, the way Kerwin shot it last year, especially at the beginning of the year. If he goes on a Kenny Williams freshman drought where he just doesn't hit a 3 for like half the season, maybe then there's a reason to take him out. But I think he's kind of inked his spot into that 2 spot. And I'm going to go a little bit different here, and it kind of goes against what we were kind of talking about when we were talking about those awards earlier. I think Brady Manic starts at the 4 spot, at least to start the season. And I think again, if Garcia is playing the way we talked about him when we were going through Defender of the Year, MVP, pretty much every award his name was coming up. If he's playing like that, then he can probably overtake Brady Manic, into ACC play or somewhere in the season. I think it could change if he's playing that well. But I think at the beginning of the season, I think it's Brady Manic, and I think it's just hard like, what did Hubert say to Brady Manic when he recruited him? And then all of a sudden, like, oh, no, now someone else is, I think it just puts him in a hard spot. So I think Brady Manic gets the nod early. Again, maybe practice is just so lopsided he doesn't have a choice but put Garcia in there. And I could see Garcia overtaking him. But I think at the beginning of the year, I'm going to predict that Brady Manic starts at the 4. And then kind of in a similar kind of situation, I think Leaky starts at the 3. Kind of like Blake, you were saying, he's got the time put in there. And I think, like Gil said, the loyalty that is just kind of ingrained in Carolina, people, it's the Carolina way is to be loyal to your upperclassmen. I think Leaky gets that nod again early in the season. If he has a season like he's had, we've kind of been disappointed in, he's not having that X factor kind of season, then maybe somebody, jumps in, whether it's Anthony Harris, whether it's, Puff Johnson, what is, a freshman, whatever, there's plenty of people that have that opportunity, but to start the season, I think it's going to be Leaky Black. And yeah, like you guys said, it leaves you in kind of like who gets those minutes, the first ones off the bench. I don't know if RJ Davis is the first one off the bench just because Caleb Love, I think, is able to play so many minutes. But, like you guys said, RJ Davis is definitely in there and plenty of minutes for him to have. And then since I didn't have Dawson Garcia in the starting lineup, obviously he's coming off the bench pretty quickly. And so we're going to get a point guard sub, a big sub, and for a wing sub, I think, again, early in the season, it's got to be Anthony Harris. If Puff Johnson were to come on strong or one of the freshmen come on strong, maybe that's kind of the third guy off the bench. But, yeah, I think it's almost kind of to the detriment of Hubert Davis in his first season that we have so much depth. It's like, again, we talked about in previous podcasts, the transfer rule and how quickly guys can just kind of exit a program. It kind of puts them in a tough spot to try to keep everybody happy that we have there. It's going to be really tough. But as far as this goes, my 3 off the bench would be Garcia, RJ Davis, and Anthony Harris, I think. Do we need any time?
But it's a better problem to have than not having enough talent.
It definitely is. But it's yeah, we got a lot of people to keep happy here so that they don't leave. So,
well, I'll say this. When you're talking about how Love can, maybe play a lot of minutes, maybe he can. If he has to, it's not a good thing. If the drop off from him to your backup point guard is so large that he has to play an inordinate amount of minutes, that's not what you want. So I would say that if RJ Davis or whoever is coming in as a backup can play, give you 80% of what Caleb Love can give you, then I don't think you want to play Caleb Love more than, 23, 24 minutes a game. You want him to have legs for the postseason. There is such a thing as getting worn out. When you're playing, 2.5, 3 games a week on average, for a number of months, you don't want him to have to play all those minutes. And I think you've got guys that are capable of running the point, especially like we've talked about sort of ad nauseum when you've got so many guys that can perform offensively and so many guys that can put the ball on the floor, so many guys that can shoot the ball from long distance. I'm not saying you could just throw any guy into that point guard role. I certainly don't believe that. But I think having a number of these talented offensive guys certainly makes it easier. And, I really do think that we're going to see improvement from both point guards this year. I think both Love and RJ Davis are going to be markedly better. And I'm anxious to see what that sort of drop off, if there is one, is like. I honestly still expect RJ Davis to actually be the better shooter. Now, I hope that Caleb Love comes out and he's absolutely phenomenal shooting the ball and he's untouchable. I expect him to be the better distributor and facilitator and running the offense better. But I expect RJ Davis to be the actual better shooter between the two.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of why I wanted us to get kind of a rotation players, because that kind of predicts how many minutes guys are getting. But like you said, hopefully nobody has to play even 30 minutes a game. If we can get everybody at 25, our starters at 25 to 28, the next group in there are just double digits or whatever.
There is no reason that anybody on that team should play 30 minutes.
Right.
There's no reason whatsoever. Way too many guys. I mean, you're talking like you could legitimately play 11 guys. It is a really, really deep team. You're talking about Love, Walton, Manic, Garcia, Baycott, McCoy, Styles, Dunn, Davis, Puff Johnson. Who did I leave out? Leaky Black. I mean, that's 11 guys right there.
Did you say Manic? Did you say Justin McCoy?
Yeah, that's 11. That's 11 guys. I mean, that is a really deep team. Now, I'm not saying that all those guys are going to perform at an All-American level. Particularly the freshman guys we've seen in the past that
Well, and hopefully, I mean, yeah, they probably won't get the chance to, but if they can come in and, like you said, give us a solid 5-10 minutes, that's awesome.
I was just going to add in when you were talking about RJ Davis, and hopefully there's not a drop off from Caleb Love. RJ played really great in the ACC tournament last year. When it was in that Virginia Tech game, I think he had 20 points or something like that. So I have full confidence in his ability, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Hubert tinkering and maybe playing him at the 2 a little bit alongside Caleb Love. I know, Blake, you don't love that. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think it got a little bit better as the season went on. I don't think it's our best option. I think he's probably our best, backup point guard, but I expect to see plenty of minutes for him this season for sure.
Yep. All right. So you guys heard our predictions. We'd love to hear you guys' either in the comments of the YouTube or in the YouTube comments or on Twitter. I got all our Twitter handles in the description of this video of this podcast. So follow us, start the conversation there. We'd love to keep talking about it. Before we jump off here, a few comments we had it here. Lori jumped on and said, can't wait to see if our predictions happen. Don't put any money on them, Lori. But great podcast. I think Walton and Davis have a great year. So a lot of people high, I think, on RJ Davis. And
you can take my predictions to the bank.
And then I don't know. I'm not going to say this guy's name here or his handle here, but it says, I don't understand how they picked Duke. I think it's supposed to be over us this year. We'll get into that in another podcast as we get into the season.
Because they're the media.
And Duke has a terrific roster. They've got a lot of talented guys.
And then something I kind of thought about here, Tar Heels and Kick says, sounds like they could run the platoons rotation. I think we have the numbers to do that. I think, like we said, there is a little bit of drop off to where you don't want to do a platoon and just do that. It's better kind of fill in guys here and there as opposed to just doing a straight platoon system.
Yeah, this isn't exactly the 2012 Kentucky Wildcats, but there are a number of guys that can play. But an A team and a B team or a blue and a white, they're not that good. But
we will see it at some point. I'm going to guess prediction that we're going to see it at one point.
That's the Carolina platoon, though.
Yeah. I expect. I hope to see him tear off his jacket and sub all 5. If I don't see that, then I'll be disappointed.
Yeah, that's a Carolina platoon. That's not a Kentucky platoon, though. All right. Thanks for listening or joining us in this conversation, however you got this podcast. And once again, I want to thank Home Field Apparel for kind of sponsoring us. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use UNC Hoops Talk at checkout to save 15% off your first order. Blake, Gil, thanks for joining me. And we'll do this again hopefully next month where we do the season predictions and get into kind of the schedule and more of that stuff. But until then, go Heels.
Go Heels.